Imagine being criticized for your relationship status at a certain age. It's quite unfair and unnecessary. Let's explore a story that unfolds differently and with a gentler touch. I'm Jennifer, a 35-year-old woman who has navigated life's ups and downs with grace. Jennifer, once a dedicated office clerk, now embraces life as a housewife, cherishing the simple moments. Her journey to love wasn't straightforward, but it led her to Stephen, a man whose spirit and kindness caught her eye. Stephen works in the transportation sector, driving a light truck for deliveries, a job that brings him back home each evening. Their love story began at the workplace, where Jennifer was drawn to Stephen's vibrant personality and approachable charm. She was the one who made the first move, finding his blend of casual confidence and genuine warmth irresistible. It felt like destiny had played its hand when Stephen shared her feelings, and within 8 months, they decided to marry, filled with hope and dreams for the future. However, marriage revealed a different side of Stephen. The once kind and gentle man Jennifer fell in love with seemed to transform, becoming harsh and unkind. Verbal outbursts became a new norm, leaving Jennifer feeling less like a partner and more like a shadow in their home. The joy and anticipation she once felt about their shared life turned into a daily struggle for peace and respect. Despite the challenges, Jennifer remained hopeful, expressing a desire to contribute financially to their household. She envisioned a partnership where both could work, save, and perhaps prepare for a future family. But when she shared this idea with Stephen, his reaction was far from supportive. His words, fueled by anger and misunderstanding, left Jennifer feeling frightened and alone, questioning the foundation of their marriage. Stephen's unpredictable moods and suspicion created an environment of constant tension. Jennifer found herself walking on eggshells, fearful of what might trigger his next outburst. The man she married, who once seemed like a beacon of hope, now appeared as a stranger, leaving her to wonder if a lifetime together was possible. An incident that should have been a simple conversation about shared responsibilities and dreams for the future turned into a moment of revelation. Jennifer realized that the love she once felt had become entangled with fear and uncertainty. The thought of enduring a lifetime of unhappiness and apprehension loomed large, igniting a desire for change and a hope for a brighter, more peaceful future. In rewriting Jennifer's story, we've aimed to capture the complexities of her experience in simpler, more relatable terms. Life often presents challenges in relationships, but it's the response to these challenges that defines our journey. Jennifer's story is one of resilience, hope, and the search for happiness, even when faced with adversity. Joining Stephen's family brought a sense of happiness and belonging that I hadn't anticipated. Stephen was the kind of person who kept his personal life private, rarely introducing girlfriends to his family. So, when we got married, it felt like a celebration not just for us, but for his family too. They welcomed me with open arms, treating me as if I were a long-lost daughter. My in-laws, kind and generous, became a source of comfort in my new life with Stephen. Thanksgiving at my in-laws' place was a special occasion, a time when warmth and laughter filled the air. My relationship with Stephen's parents was a silver lining in the sometimes challenging aspects of my marriage. Yet, during a family gathering, an unexpected turn of events would reveal the complexities of my situation. As the family enjoyed each other's company, playful banter began. A relative joked about his wife in a lighthearted exchange, sparking laughter and a jovial atmosphere. However, when Stephen joined in, the tone shifted. His attempt to tease me in front of everyone left me feeling exposed and hurt, especially when he compared me unfavorably to another, suggesting I lacked a certain womanliness. Stunned by Stephen's words, I found myself at a loss. The laughter around me felt cruel, and the only people who seemed to share my discomfort were my in-laws. Sensing my distress, my father-in-law quickly intervened, suggesting I help in the kitchen, a timely escape from an increasingly uncomfortable situation. In the kitchen, tears I couldn't hold back began to fall. My mother-in-law, ever compassionate, comforted me as though she were my own mother. Meanwhile, my father-in-law addressed the gathering, demanding apologies for the insensitive behavior, a request met by all but Stephen, whose stubbornness only fueled a deeper rift within the family. That incident marked the beginning of a gradual decline in my relationship with Stephen and his family. My visits to my in-laws became less frequent, and life at home grew increasingly difficult. Everyday tasks felt like insurmountable obstacles, and Stephen's reminders of that day only deepened the divide between us. His temper became a constant threat, leaving me walking on eggshells, afraid of igniting his anger further. Living on the 6th floor of an apartment building, I found myself feeling trapped, not just by the physical space, but by the emotional turmoil that had become my daily reality. The joy and connection I once felt with Stephen's family, my only respite in a challenging marriage, had faded, leaving me to navigate a complex web of emotions and uncertainties alone. During a particularly low point in my life, when every day felt like an insurmountable struggle, I found myself contemplating if there was any escape from the overwhelming sadness and isolation. It's difficult to think clearly when you're consumed by such despair. Every thought seems to lead you further into darkness. It was during one of these moments that my sister Susan unexpectedly visited. Susan, who is 2 years older than me and has always had a youthful appearance that belied her age, hadn't planned on visiting. She was in the area overseeing the renovation of her new club and decided to check in on me, sensing something was amiss. Our relationship has always been close. We were inseparable growing up, and she was my biggest supporter when I married. Her unexpected concern was a reminder of the bond we shared. Upon seeing me, Susan immediately knew something was wrong. Her visit prompted a flood of emotions, and I couldn't help but open up about the difficulties I was facing with my husband. Describing the emotional turmoil felt like recounting a nightmare I couldn't wake up from, a life that felt more like a prison than a home. Susan's initial reaction was one of fury, ready to confront my husband then and there. However, seeing the fear in my eyes, she held back, understanding that her direct confrontation could make my situation worse. Instead, she proposed a daring plan, one that seemed so outlandish it took me by surprise. Yet there was a spark of hope in her idea, a chance for a change that seemed almost too good to be true. Her plan, though risky, was imbued with a sense of possibility. Susan's confidence was infectious, and despite the fear of what might happen if we were discovered, her determination and belief in the plan gave me the courage to agree. From that day, Susan became a constant presence, her strategy relying on the fact that my husband's demeanor changed in public. She believed that by being around, she could protect me from further harm. Susan's visits became more frequent, and unexpectedly, my husband began to look forward to her company, especially their evening drinks. Over time, he grew fond of her, showing her a side of affection I had never seen. Susan played her part brilliantly, ensuring he was well enough intoxicated each evening before she left, always offering to stay over as a gesture of camaraderie. Her plan was a delicate balance of intervention and observation, a testament to her commitment to helping me find a way out of my despair. With each visit, she not only provided a buffer between me and my husband, but also worked quietly behind the scenes to implement her plan, a plan that held the promise of freedom and a new beginning. Susan always gracefully declined Stephen's invitations to stay over, promising to return the following day. For Stephen, these moments with Susan were like living in a dream, to the point where he seemed to forget about our marriage entirely. However, the dynamic shifted dramatically when Susan was on the verge of reopening her club. Unexpectedly, Stephen announced he wanted a divorce, claiming he had found someone he cared more about and desired happiness with them instead of me. I was stunned by his sudden decision and his blunt dismissal of our life together. Refusing to accept his selfish rationale, I was met with the cold reality that Stephen had already prepared for this moment, even mentioning he had consulted a lawyer. During a formal meeting with the lawyer present, Stephen threw baseless accusations my way, suggesting I was only after financial gain and willing to negotiate my exit from the marriage for a price. It was a stark revelation of his true feelings, or lack thereof, toward me. Despite the hurtful words and the clear indication of his priorities, I faced the situation with a mix of resignation and strategic thinking, agreeing to the divorce under the condition of fair property division. As Stephen gleefully anticipated a swift and uncomplicated divorce, unaware of my inner feelings, I couldn't help but reveal a knowing smirk, recognizing the irony of the situation. The proceedings began to unfold, but it wasn't just a matter between Stephen and me. When we broke the news to his parents, they were vehemently against it. They couldn't fathom why Stephen would consider divorce, especially when they saw how much I had integrated into and dedicated myself to the family. His parents' reaction was a mix of anger and disappointment. They saw me as part of their family, and the idea of separation was unbearable to them. Stephen's indifference to his parents' pleas highlighted a stark disconnect, his mind seemingly made up, regardless of anyone else's feelings. It was clear that his decision wasn't just affecting me, it was impacting those around us who valued the family unit we had formed. Despite the initial despair, this moment reinforced the support and love his parents had for me, contrasting sharply with Stephen's readiness to abandon our marriage for a newfound affection. Their defense in the face of his resolve was a small solace, reminding me of the familial bonds that extended beyond the failing marriage. Feeling a deep sense of betrayal towards Stephen's parents was inevitable. I had grown to love them as if they were my own, and the thought of leaving them behind was heart-wrenching. If only my marriage with Stephen had turned out differently, I would have been honored to remain part of their family. The sorrow of the situation was overwhelming, and I found myself unable to stop the flow of tears. Stephen's reaction to his parents' desperate pleas was one of complete dismissal. Fueled by anger and defiance, he vocally rejected their concern and insistence on reconsidering his decision. Their inability to support his sudden choice led to a dramatic fallout, resulting in Stephen being disowned on the spot. Following this, he left, presumably to start a new life with the person he claimed to love, and our divorce was finalized shortly after. Half a year later, I found myself in an upscale French restaurant, enjoying a dinner with my parents. It was there, during a brief moment outside to take a call, that I unexpectedly ran into Stephen. His approach was marked by a familiar condescension, and his tone instantly brought back unpleasant memories. My expression must have betrayed my feelings, prompting him to challenge me with a sneer, questioning if I had moved on or found someone new. His mockery was a painful reminder of the person I had come to know after marrying him, someone whose true colors were hidden until it was too late. Before I could respond to his provocations, Susan appeared. Her timing was impeccable. Just as Stephen was about to boast about his new life, the smugness on his face was evident as he announced their plans to marry, wrapping an arm around her in a possessive gesture. I stood there, composed, not letting his words or actions disturb me. My response was a silent, steely gaze, even as he flaunted his relationship with Susan, believing he had somehow triumphed over me. Stephen's grin seemed to imply he had won some victory, not only in life but also in love, believing that his new relationship with Susan validated his choices. However, his inability to understand the true impact of his actions, the pain he had caused, and the relationships he had strained was clear. He looked at me expecting a reaction, but I remained unflustered, watching the scene unfold with a calm detachment, knowing that the value of one's life and happiness cannot be measured by another's perceptions or spiteful remarks. In a twist that seemed straight out of a drama, Susan coolly withdrew from Stephen's grasp, delivering the stunning revelation that she had no intention of marrying him. Her declaration left Stephen in a state of shock, his face a mix of disbelief and confusion as he tried to process her words. I couldn't help but let out a mockingly confused tone, reveling in the unraveling of our meticulously planned scheme. Stephen was utterly bewildered, questioning the reality of the situation, unable to grasp that the entire scenario was a carefully orchestrated plot by Susan and me. The goal was simple: to secure the divorce and ensure a favorable settlement. As I joined Susan, our shared glances were filled with amusement over the success of our plan. Even as the truth dawned on Stephen, he struggled to accept it. The idea that Susan, whom he believed was deeply in love with him, was actually part of a ruse to expedite our divorce and secure a better financial outcome was too much for him to bear. His protests were met with feigned innocence and calculated responses from Susan, who maintained her act of having only entertained him as a client, never harboring any real affection towards him. Susan's explanation, dripping with mock sympathy, was the final blow to Stephen's ego. She clarified that her interactions with him were strictly professional, a necessary facade to ensure the success of our plan. Stephen's reaction, a mix of anger and disbelief, unfolded publicly as he voiced his outrage, unable to come to terms with being manipulated for the past 8 months. Amidst his tirade, Susan's sharp retort highlighted the absurdity of his expectations. Why would anyone genuinely want to be with someone capable of such emotional cruelty? Her words, though harsh, were a reflection of the reality Stephen refused to acknowledge. As the situation escalated, I discreetly prepared to call for help if needed, wary of Stephen's potential for aggression. The charade we had maintained for half a year, a delicate balance of deception and strategy, had come to a successful conclusion, revealing the lengths to which we were willing to go to escape the toxic cycle of my marriage with Stephen. The revelation, although shocking, was a testament to our resolve and the depth of our familial bond, standing in solidarity against adversity. Navigating through the complexities of my marriage and eventual divorce felt like navigating a maze, but with an unexpected twist, thanks to my sister's ingenious plan. My sister, already happily married to a man who worked as a bodyguard, concocted a ruse to entangle my ex-husband in a web of deception. She feigned interest in him, pretending that she too was on the verge of a divorce. For my ex, who had rarely felt the thrill of being pursued, this attention was intoxicating. He was seduced by the idea of winning someone over, not realizing he was merely a pawn in a larger scheme designed to free me from our unhappy marriage. The moment my sister revealed the truth, it was a scene straight out of a dramatic climax. Her husband joined us, greeting my ex with a polite smile, shattering the illusion my sister had maintained. As she introduced her actual husband, her contentment was palpable, starkly contrasting with my ex-husband's growing realization of the deceit. His reaction was a mix of disbelief and despair, a poignant reminder of the time wasted on a fictitious romance. When my ex attempted to confront me physically, my brother-in-law was quick to step in, showcasing his protective instincts and skill. The confrontation escalated as I confronted my ex with the pent-up grievances of our marriage. I recounted the humiliations, the disrespect towards his family and mine, and all the pain he had caused. It was a cathartic release of emotions, a declaration that I would no longer bear the weight of his mistreatment. In a moment of ultimate revelation, I called out for witnesses, our parents and relatives from both sides. As they emerged, the room filled with the eyes of those who had been part of our lives. Now witnesses to the unveiling of my ex-husband's character. With everyone's attention on us, I played a voice recording, a final piece of evidence that laid bare the truth of his actions and demeanor. This moment was more than just about exposing my ex-husband's failings. It was a testament to the strength found in unity, the support of family, and the lengths we go to protect and vindicate our loved ones. It was a turning point, marking the end of a chapter filled with turmoil and the beginning of a journey towards healing and newfound independence. In a moment that felt like the climax of a long and turbulent saga, I stood before our assembled families, about to reveal the true nature of my ex-husband through a voice recording my sister had cleverly secured. The recording captured him speaking in a demeaning, sweet tone, openly dismissing his marriage to me as nothing more than a convenience and expressing a shallow preference for what he perceived as maturity and attractiveness in Susan. His words, dripping with insincerity and superficiality, sent shivers down my spine, not just for their content, but for the sheer audacity of his disrespect. Despite the discomfort it caused, I let the recording play out in its entirety, ensuring everyone present could hear the extent of his callousness towards me. He described me as no more than a servant, easily manipulated and ultimately disposable. The revelation of his blatant emotional abuse and disregard for our marriage elicited a wave of disgust and anger from those who had once welcomed him as family. As he protested and demanded an end to the exposure, my brother-in-law intervened, ensuring the truth continued to unfold, uninterrupted. The collective outrage of our families was palpable. He was condemned in no uncertain terms for his disgraceful attitude and treatment of me. In that moment, unified in their disdain, they made it clear he was no longer considered part of the family. With a finality that felt both liberating and vindicating, I declared that he was to stay away from me and my family forever. The voice recorder was stopped, and my brother-in-law took charge of removing him from the premises. His attempts at resistance were futile. He was physically removed and, in a final act of desperation, caused a scene outside the restaurant, which led to his being taken to the police station. The aftermath was a mix of relief and celebration. My sister and I, having orchestrated this cathartic revelation, exchanged high fives, a symbol of our victory over the injustice I had endured. The decision to reserve the entire restaurant for this gathering proved wise. allowing everyone to process the evening's events and enjoy a meal together in a supportive and unburdened atmosphere. Susan's role in all this was invaluable. Not only had she been instrumental in exposing my ex-husband's true character, but she also stood by me through the darkest times. This meal, shared with her after such a long ordeal, was more than just a meal. It was a symbol of our solidarity, resilience, and the beginning of a new chapter. In the years that followed, my life took a positive turn. I began working with Susan, managing the accounting for her store, and maintained a warm relationship with my former in-laws, occasionally meeting them for dinners. My gratitude towards Susan knew no bounds, and I was determined to repay her kindness in any way I could. As for my ex-husband, any attempts to intimidate or harass were swiftly dealt with by my brother-in-law, ensuring he never dared to trouble us again. It's been 11 years since those tumultuous days, and now, as I work alongside Susan, I'm reminded of how far I've come and the strength we've found in each other. Today, as every day, I'm committed to doing my best, grateful for the support and the second chance at a life free from the shadows of the past.